Let's talk about Nick Nurse. How much? Because when we put this question out, we saw some in the chat. I know Jess, who's in there in the chat, she had one that came back and said Nurse. I saw on the other side where Martian said, so it's Maury's fault. There are a number of places to point. You can point at the players. We talked about the front office. We've talked about the coach, but we haven't really spoken on them individually. When you look at Nurse, my pushback on a lot of it is, what was he supposed to do? Or what is he supposed to do? And it's not that he doesn't deserve any blame.
My answer would be something rather than nothing, which is what it feels like he's doing.
And that hasn't worked because, as you said, this is not changing for another month and a half. He has what he has. He's putting these guys out there. They were supposed to work around the 3 All-Stars. They haven't been out there for more than 6 minutes together on the floor together. And the best second player behind Tyrese Maxey has been Jared McCain. I am not sticking up for Nick Nurse in any way. I'm simply asking, though, what is Nick Nurse supposed to do with the something that you say?
Run an offense would be a good place to start. So I think, and we get this in the chat, I see it on social a good amount, right? Where it's been so long into Nurse's career now that people view him as a defensive guy.
Yes.
He was the offensive coordinator. That was what he was brought to do when Dwayne Casey was the Raptors head coach. Broadly, he is known, or was known earlier in his career, as an offensive guy. And I don't say this as an insult. His offense, as a general rule, is going to be vanilla. He wants to run simple actions. He wants to move the ball, get out of dribble handoffs, get out of pick and rolls. And it's like that 0.5 decision-making type of basketball, right? And when that is with or on a team where you have star talent available, I think that's good. That's the right thing to do, right? Because you see when star offensive players are able to kind of freelance and the things are set and static around them, and Joel and Tyrese can play off of one another. Or like in Dallas, it's like Luka controls everything, and he has a rim runner and spacers around him, and he can manipulate the chess pieces around the board and like go around the league. And that's the case. Like simple is not bad.
Right.
I think the problem, and this is not just this year, we saw this last year as well, is that Nick has tried to adhere to the simple, no second side, like very basic actions when he doesn't have multiple stars available, when it is Tyrese Maxey and a rookie and a bunch of role players, or last year when it was just Tyrese Maxey and a bunch of role players, and it has not worked. It is not good enough. You can get away with, we're going to run a basic dribble handoff on one side, clear it out with 3 guys on the other side, just kind of static and not moving, when Joel Embiid and Tyrese are the 2 men, and Joel's going to draw a double team, or Tyrese is going to get to the rim because the double team or the pressure is coming toward Joel. When it's McCain and Yabusele, and they don't have that type of gravity quite yet, those second side guys need to be, whether it's cutting, setting screens, set a pin down for someone coming off the other side. I mentioned it on the postgame show last night. If you believe Jared McCain is in that Steph Curry mold, and a lot of people are throwing that out there, where he's a relocator, right? It's the constant movement, can have him hit shots on the move. Run some elevator doors plays, right? Like run some things that are designed just for the shooter, not the guy who's handling the ball. And we see very little of that. They are not a second side action team, have not been basically the whole time that Nick Nurse has been here. And it's admirable in theory or on paper to say, we want to keep things relatively the same no matter who's playing, right? You want to build continuity and just like, these are the plays we run. This is where you need to be on this action, things like that, right?
Yep.
That's great to say. But when the talent level drops significantly and those guys who are the main people running the actions either can't run them effectively, or in like Maxey's case, there are times when he's just getting trapped and they're getting the ball out of his hands, there needs to be a second and third development in the play, or they just have no chance to score. You're not going to create good offense often enough to beat NBA teams with most of their talent available. And so I just don't think he is reacting to what is happening around him. I think he wants to be coaching a team that's different from the one that he has. And then on top of that, it's just like the low-hanging fruit stuff drives me nuts, right? Someone replied to me last night when I was like, this lineup is insane. He ran out an all-bench lineup. It was like Reggie Jackson, Eric Gordon, both Martins, and Andre Drummond, right? Like that is not a lineup that can score. No. It was only on the floor for like a minute and a half, and he gets Maxey out there. And I had someone say to me, well, you can't play Maxey and McCain 48 minutes a game. If you play Maxey and McCain start and end 6 minutes of each half, and then give them each 6 minutes of rest at either the end of the first, start of the second, end of the third, start of the fourth, that's 36 total minutes for those guys. And that, at their ages, is a perfectly reasonable amount of minutes to ask anyone to play. And you can have one of those guys on the floor every second of the game.
Unless they're in foul trouble, there's no reason why they shouldn't be.
That's all I'm saying, right? It's like, I'm not asking you to turn chicken, you know what, into chicken noodle soup, but you can do the basic stuff to put your team in the best position to succeed. And I don't see that happening. I think they're missing on the easy stuff. And then the broader schematic, the broader structural stuff also isn't good enough. So Nick certainly owns a big portion of this.
And my problem with it, when I sit here and say, all right, I'm not hanging everything on Nick Nurse, is that, all right, if you had two different offenses that you were going to have this season, the Joel Embiid-led offense where he's the first option, and then you have Maxey and George thereafter. When he's out, we know he's going to be out, and there's a 48-minute game, it's a Paul George, Tyrese Maxey run offense. That's two offenses that he was counting on having. You haven't been able to have either one of those. Where has the adjustment been, knowing that they were both going to, well, at least George was going to miss the start of the season because of the preseason injury. And then with the Embiid thing that they knew more than we did of if he was going to start the season, what that was going to look like. So, yeah, they were competitive against Milwaukee. They were competitive against a few other teams before they went on that West Coast trip and lost to Phoenix in that first one where they one of the games that they should have won, of course, on that West Coast trip. They needed to adjust and figure out, all right, we got to figure it out in the moment right now.
Yeah.
Let's lay something out. This is what we have to go with moving forward. And when they come back, we already know what we have installed for when George and Embiid come back. Right now, we have to do it this way. Not that they knew McCain was going to turn out this way, but it was still the Tyrese Maxey-led offense and how it was going to be branching around. Now, with that, you got to get creative because we saw where it struggled last season for the time Embiid was out. And you also know that they're going to load up to take him away and force everybody else to do something, whether it's Lowry, Gordon, McCain at the time when he was just still getting those spot minutes, and Oubre and Martin for sure in that unit with Andre Drummond. They're going to load up. So you have to be creative of how you get easier shots. You got 24 seconds to figure out how to get something good for your best player. But then on the other stuff, because they are loading up, how can you get some movement off ball where the ball does swing to the weak side and you get some things happening where it is the, sure, you're going to clear out sometimes because you have a favorable matchup because some screens are set. I get that part. You're going to have some where the shot clock winds down and you're at 5 seconds. Kelly Oubre has the basketball, and he's a one-on-one type player that you do that. But where's the play design that is going to get an easy backdoor look? Somebody cutting to the middle for a floater or an opportunity to still have a good enough handle on the basketball to catch and dribble, catch and Euro step, and get a good floater, a good layup opportunity at the rim, maybe an extra pass to Drummond right there at the rim where it takes no seconds off the clock because it's less work for him to have to do anything decision-making as far as an offensive player. We're seeing none of that. And then what happens when all of that goes away? The players know it. Not just Joel Embiid saying in that meeting of, as it leaked out, what are we running? It's the players who are not as talented as George, Maxey, and Embiid to get their own, that they don't have any faith in what they're running. And as a result, they're just all out there. We can't blame Caleb Martin for taking 16 shots and shot creation because he's getting the ball with 5 seconds to go and taking these shots. It's not his fault. He's trying to do what you're supposed to do within the framework of a 24-second shot clock and get his shot off so you don't have a violation, so you don't do something crazy out there where they're just running the other way with an odd man advantage to get an opportunity at the other end for an easy transition bucket And now it's a 9-0 run, and Nick Nurse has to call a timeout. They have no faith in it. They're not good enough to run an offense where they are one-on-one type players. And as a result, you see what we see as one of the worst offenses in the league, and certainly one of the worst records in the NBA, because they are not good enough to run these offenses without Maxey, George, and Embiid. And the coaching staff, if they're being as generic as possible with this offense, they're not doing enough to give them the position to succeed out there on the floor against these teams that they're playing.
We all silly like the mayor.